the one and only Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, and they didn't come along. Give them a round of applause.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah, man. I think we could do that applause a little better. Let's give them a round of applause.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
I'm great.
Good.
First of all, you brought guests with you.
Yes.
Let's introduce the guests. Can you do the honors, Macklemore?
Absolutely. To my left, Jamila.
Jamila.
Hi.
Hey, go ahead. Put that mic up. There you go, Jamila.
Hi, everybody.
Okay. And Jamila is from?
Chicago, Illinois.
Okay. And you was featured on this song, White Privilege, too, right?
Yes,
Oh.
I was the vocalist at the end.
Yeah, you have great vocals, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I always listen to see if people stay in key. You stayed in key. All right. And then next to Jamila, we have
Dustin.
Dustin
How you doing?
from Jersey.
From Seattle by way of Jersey.
From Seattle by us. That still count, Heather B?
Absolutely. Jersey always in the building. What part of Jersey?
South Jersey, Willingboro.
There you go.
Okay, all right. And then also, last but definitely not least, we have
Hollis.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, how you doing,
We got the
Hollis?
squad.
Great. Feeling good to be in New York.
Oh, well, good to have you here. Congratulations on everything, man.
Yeah.
Last time we saw each other, we were in Europe. And we were at the EMAs.
Yes.
That was a couple months ago, and you guys were performing downtown on stage, and I was at the rehearsal, and I was trying to get your attention, and you guys were really focused, and we finally spoke, and I wanted to commend you because, Heather, one of the things that they did that I wish a lot more artists do. I've seen Kid Rock do it before Run DMC. I've seen Eminem do it before and bring people out on a big stage. And what they did is they helped breathe life, even more life, into some of our hip hop pioneers. When we talking about Kumo D,
Dope.
and we talking about Grandmaster Caz, and we talking about Kumo D, Caz, and Melly Mel. Oh my God.
Melly Mel.
Ooh, I can't forget Melly,
Yeah,
one of the
you can't.
greatest of all time, if
Right.
not the greatest.
Right.
And they did the Downtown record, and I remember watching it too, watching the piece of the video and watching the rehearsals at the EMAs, and I remember thinking, damn it, it's so cool. Even at the VMAs, it's so cool to see Kumo D, Melly Mel, and Grandmaster Caz from the Cold Crush Brothers, on stage on this big platform. And I was proud of you guys for doing that because nobody takes care of our pioneers. Why did you choose to do that?
It was actually Ryan was listening. We both listened to Sirius XM.
Oh, okay. Well,
And we were listening. He was listening to Backspin. And was like, yo, you know what we need to do is flip some of these old cadences and old inflections that people were doing in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of all those dudes. And I wrote some raps, and we were kind of going for this old school hip hop / like old school rock merger feel. And I did it, and I was like, man, it doesn't feel authentic if we don't reach out to the people that originated this style.
Yeah.
If we just take it without actually like at least asking if they wanted to be a part of the record. Because Melly Mel is one of the, that inflection is one of the most classic tones in hip hop history.
Yeah.
I mean, the message to me is the greatest hip hop record of all time.
Yeah. That's I could get. Yeah.
Well
I said
stated.
that too.
You got it.
Never been a song more important than that, right?
Right.
How did you write their verses or did they?
Well, it was a group vocal.
Okay.
So
Squad.
it was a squad vocal. So I did write it, but those guys are all MCs.
Yeah.
Like they would have been real quick to pick up the pen. It wasn't like, yo, write our verses. The song was already almost done. So they came in and did the group vocal part of it. But yeah. It wasn't like I'm writing raps for Melly Mel or anything like that.
Okay, yeah. Brian, did they know you guys when you guys started working with them? Were they familiar with your background?
They were all differently familiar with our background, but I think that it was new for sure.
It was new. One of the reasons why you guys are here today is because of this song that you released to the universe, if you will, that has all the social media buzz. People in the streets are buzz. People in the industry, they're buzzing about it too. I got a chance to hear it maybe about 4 or 5 times, and
Right.
I even went to Genius too and downloaded the lyrics. I want to play this song right now. It's called White Privilege 2, and I want to come back and just talk about how it all began, how it all came together. Okay, Sway in the Morning. Sway in the Morning, Shade 45. That was White Privilege 2, recently released to the world. In my opinion, Heather, one of the most powerful songs, impactful songs, honest songs, uncomfortable songs, songs that evoke all sorts of emotions that I've heard in an extremely long time.
Right.
The type of song that I enjoy, that forces people to think. Whether they agree with what's being said in the song or not, this is our world. This is our society.
Absolutely.
This is our country. This is our culture. Macklemore and Ryan Lewis are here. They brought guests. I'm just curious. This is probably the bravest song you've ever had to. Well, I won't say that. You made a lot of courageous songs, but this is an extremely, brave song for you guys to make and write. Why? Why did you feel you don't have to do this? You got Grammys. You guys are rich now. You sold a lot of records independently. You've been on world tours. Why do you even care to bring these topics about white supremacy, cultural appropriation, racism? Why was that important for you to talk about this?
For me, my art has always been a means of trying to dig into some sort of truth, whether that was truth in myself, truth in society, using the page as a means to peel away the layers and try to figure this experience out that we call life. And that's a daunting process at times. But one that is the reason why I make art, why I write raps. And this was a record that was difficult. We watched, when we first met, we were an underground rap group, and we obviously had a lot of success fairly quickly. Although we've been doing it for a long time, the success happened very fast. And there was a certain point in around 2013 where we had, I wrote this original record, White Privilege, now 10 years ago. And this was a very different moment. From that perspective, 10 years ago, I was looking at it from an outsider, from an observational point of hip hop has changed since I've been a fan of it. Who's coming to shows has changed since I started to go to shows. The mass consumer, what it looks like on television, the success of Eminem, the success of underground rappers that are white, everything is changing. I was looking at it from that perspective. Fast forward 10 years, here I am at the center of a conversation about race within hip hop, cultural appropriation, the Grammys, the process of who gets on the radio, who doesn't. And it felt necessary and very important for us to address that again. And to not shy away from that topic, but to step into the conversation and all of its inherent flaws, all of its all of my fear around like, what am I gonna say now? It felt necessary.
We have these conversations a lot on this show. This is something, these topics are topics we've hit on for years, and it's falling on deaf ears. I'm gonna put, it's falling on deaf ears, and I think it has a lot to do with the messengers. Because you could listen to Jasiri X, or you could listen to Kendrick Lamar, or different folks who have pretty much intertwined the similar messages in their music as well, and it doesn't stick necessarily. It doesn't hold true, and definitely a lot of white people aren't listening to them say it. It coming from you is making white people listen as well to you say it. There's a certain ignorance that exists about white privilege with white people, in my opinion. When you speak to other white people, no blacks around, what is that conversation like? Do people understand that they're in this country or in this world, there is a such thing as white privilege? Do they get that, or do you see a lot of ignorance to that as well?
I think that It depends on where you go.
Yeah.
I think in our community, a lot of people would understand the concept of white privilege, and it would end there in terms of recognizing it and then being silent and living comfortably within your privilege, which is what I think we've done for the last 2 years. So I think that this song was an attempt to participate in this conversation and try to do that in an authentic way. And sort of face the same white silence that we've been comfortable in.
Have you had conversations with other white folks? Just because we have conversations,
Right.
you know, we sit around and talk about it all the time with black folks. But
To me, that was the at the core of what this song is an attempt to open up a dialogue with the platform that we have to reach white youth, to have a conversation about race, and put it out there, because we can be silent.
yeah,
We can sit back under the behind the veil of white supremacy and still be comfortable, but that's never going to change anything. And we had to step up. And I think there was a long period of time where we we're having success, and as you mentioned, also getting critiqued with that success.
yeah,
But I was silent. There is an epidemic happening right now with police brutality and people of color in America, as there always has been. And I was silent. I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to make it worse. I didn't want to, I didn't want to say something that was wrong and then have that come back negatively to me. And I think it is imperative for us as hip hop artists, as white hip hop artists, to step into the conversation in an authentic way to engage a dialogue with white people. And that's what this song's intention was at the core.
Macklemore and Ryan, I was blowing up Sway's phone over the weekend when this song came out. And I already told you guys once you walked in, I thought it was such a great show of social responsibility and personal accountability. And I didn't realize there was a whole legion of people who are on the offense with it. And I was looking at some tweets, and someone had put out 9 minutes of Macklemore apologizing for being Macklemore. And I was dissecting that, and I think it's because you're putting a spotlight on white privilege, and people are flipping that and turning it into white guilt. And so I'm wondering, in your opinion, what is white guilt? Is it something that you feel?
That's a good question. I think that this song starts out with me the night of the non-indictment of Darren Wilson, and feeling that frustration, feeling that anger, feeling that this is happening again and I can't believe it. And I was driving my car and I passed the police precinct in Seattle where they were starting to protest. And I drove past. And I drove to a meeting. And I sat down in that meeting and I just felt like I needed to crawl out of my skin. I was just not comfortable in this place. I drove back, parked my car, and got into the protest. That's where this song starts. And I think that for all, in that moment, I felt out of protest practice. I felt like, who am I to be engaging in this? Am I going to cause more of a disruption being Macklemore in this moment? We have news cameras there. Like all of a sudden they find out that it's me and the camera shift to me and it becomes about me when that's not why I was there at all. So the song walks the listener through that moment. And in that second verse, I think that where probably people are getting the white guilt from, that's me unpacking baggage. That's me showing up to the protest and not knowing if this is actually benefiting anybody but myself. Like, why am I actually there? And it was important for me in this song to come from a real place. I think that if I just got on the microphone and started talking about white privilege, like, yo, I've read this book and that book, and I know what's up, I've had these conversations, that's not inviting. I need to come to that conversation how I felt, which was hearing Black Lives Matter chanted for the first time and not knowing if that was okay for me to say. If I don't share that, maybe that is guilt. Maybe that is me unpacking or having this baggage I'm showing up to the protest in. But that's where I was at. And And I can't really get to a point of identifying with an audience if I'm coming in trying to point the finger and lecturing like I have it figured out, because I'm not an expert. I'm just attempting to participate.
Right. And then I think another part that people were really paying attention to is when you had mentioned Iggy and Miley and Elvis, and you were speaking about their use of cultural appropriation.
Right.
And some folks were like, well, what about you, Macklemore? Aren't you a cultural appropriator yourself? And I thought that maybe you did include yourself when you said, like, heisted the magic, but I don't want to interpret it. I'd rather, since you're here.
That whole verse is me implicating myself. And I think a lot of people have misinterpreted it, but it starts out with me saying, I'm in my own head, basically. And I had this internalized conflict and this internalized criticism that I've been hearing for the last couple years. And I'm going through my own thoughts. So it says, Ben, think about it. You've exploited and stolen the music, the moment, the magic, the passion, the fashion you toyed with. The culture was never yours to make better. You're Miley, you're Elvis, you're Iggy Azalea. We're all in the same place. We're all in the same sphere. We are white artists that in the last couple of years have been rightfully critiqued as appropriating Black culture and benefiting from it. So there is no difference in that regard. I'm putting myself in the exact same box as them. It was not intended to be a diss. It was intended to be to say that I'm exactly the same.
Right.
So then Ryan and Macklemore, so with in this world that we live in of everybody bragging about, oh, I ain't write shit. I just went into the studio and just spit it out. And the producer, yo, this just took 5 minutes. We kicked out the beat. This shit is fire. I'm all over the club. With so many parts. Well, because I'm an artist as well, and I understand what it takes to make a brilliant record. I mean, bottom line, what it takes to make a brilliant record. How long did it take to put this together, like all the pieces of it? How long did it take from start when you rode past the precinct that day till its completion?
Over a year.
Wow.
Over a year.
Over a year, and it would not have been possible without the community that we got with to make this record. And you know, I would love to hear from them. But it was very much a collaboration in the truest sense of the form, because if we're talking about having dialogues, if we're talking about listening, knowing when to step forward and when to step back, that can't happen just with me and Ryan.
Yeah.
That has to be a conversation. If we're talking about it's important to have dialogue, we need to be showcasing that dialogue on the record and in the process of making that record. And that's where, you know, I initially, after that, when did we first start talking? Probably after the night of the non-indictment, Hollis and I started talking, and we've collaborated on a bunch of stuff before. But that was when she first introduced me to some people in the movement in Seattle, Black Lives Matter movement, and started having dialogue. And that was, well over a year ago.
Wow.
Macklemore and Ryan Lewis are here. They brought guests. We're gonna meet the guest up next. But we appreciate this dialogue. Sway in the Morning, Shay 45. All right, Sway in the Morning, Shay 45. Macklemore and Ryan Lewis are here.
Yep.
They didn't bring the Grammys, have to be. They didn't bring the Grammys with them.
Leave all the glitter at the crib.
They don't realize, and maybe I got to explain it to your guests, because I don't know if Ryan told you, but it was one point when they came up on our show, like years ago, way before winning Grammys, you know what I mean? And we were recognizing them as independent artists that I liked, you know what I mean, because of their message. I believed in them, Jamila. And did you hear me get a shout out when they won a Grammy?
They had cut me off right then. They cued the music, and
he didn't have to and got away with it. That's white privilege.
So many layers.
So many layers to white privilege. It's funny, white privilege, you know, affects everyone. Right, and even white people, right, and they don't even realize it, you know, because it'll make you live in a make-believe world, pretentious world, some facetious world that don't really exist, you know, and that's not even fair to you or your kids, you know, moving forward. And I'm looking at the people that you guys enlisted to help you with this song, White Privilege 2. Why did you choose? Let's talk to Jamila. Jamila,
Yes.
the vocalist.
Hello.
Where you from?
I'm from Chicago.
You're from Chicago.
Yes,
and
Southside.
Southside, but you're part of an organization too, right, in Chicago?
Yes, I'm part of an organization called Young Chicago Authors, and we run the largest youth poetry festival in the world called Louder Than a Bomb.
Wow, that's dope, man. We
Yeah,
need
yeah.
I should be up on this.
Yeah, you should come through.
I would love to come through. Absolutely, I would love to come through. Did you know them before they approached you, or no?
No.
So what did you think when these two white boys came up and said,
Good question.
like two white guys, like, yo, we want to do this song called White Privilege too. We want your involvement. You know, some people may say, well, maybe they putting them on, you know, as shields, you know, to protect themselves,
Yeah.
you know, and use you for your credibility and what you do in the community in the trenches. What were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, well, Hollis first hit me up and said, you know, got a crazy proposition for you, like thing to tell you. And when I first heard it, I really trust Hollis, so I wanted to at least, you know, talk to Ben and talk to Ryan about what the project was. And I remember me and Ben got on the phone, and he was like, I can't send you the song, but let me just describe to you play by play, like what each verse is about and what it's trying to do. And what really made me curious and made me want to come to Seattle and hear it for myself was that it felt like it was tackling a lot of different issues, like the issue of cultural appropriation, the issue of how does a white person engage in the Black Lives Matter movement or Black liberation struggles. And it was messy. It seemed like, how in the world will you fit all of this into a song? Also, you say it's a 9-minute song. Like, it just really intrigued me. I like, as an artist, I like things that are non-conventional. And I think that that's things that can often have a bigger, broader impact. So I at least wanted to come hear it for myself. And they made it very open-ended. They said, we would love for you to just come hear it, give us some ideas about what you think, give us feedback. If you are willing to sing on it, that would be great. If you want to just come listen and leave, that's fine too. So I just appreciated that openness. And when I heard it, I felt like it was something I wanted to be involved with. You
felt like it was effective. They did a great job in what they had written up to that point.
At the point I came, it was written up to the cafe, the suburban white mom scene, because we were talking about it like scenes. And we were they were in a place not knowing where to go next. And they were thinking of having these scripted kind of lines, you know, perspectives of different white people. And that was a moment where it reminded me, because I've also come from a theater background, of just the importance of having authentic dialogue, and also just thinking about what do white people actually say to each other, what do they actually think about white privilege. So that was a moment where it didn't really sit right with me, and so I told them, and so we came up with the idea of having authentic conversations included in the song. So I think it was both. It was like parts that really resonated with me and parts that I felt could be shifted. We talked about that.
And your background, your ethnicity, you're black? What
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, I'm black.
What about you, Dustin? What's your ethnicity? What's your background? Black, right? I'm just clarification, man. You know, why these guys are getting a lot of backlash with Black Twitter. Okay, a lot of black folks are on y'all ass right now. You know, who are you? What are you talking about, man? You benefited from this. And what were your thoughts when you first heard the song? And because you're involved with the project, what would your message be to those who may not agree with these guys being the messengers or feel like the song isn't authentic?
So first I would say that I don't think Ben or Ryan see themselves as the messengers, but they're two people using their platform to shine a light on white supremacy. And I think one of the things, reading the different comments that are out there, especially from other black people, just because we suffer the brunt of racism doesn't mean we really understand racism. And in many ways, racism is about the bias built into our systems for those who have come to be called white. So we tend to think we're the only ones who should have authority in terms of speaking about racism. But racism, if we understand how racism was historically constructed, there's absolutely a place for white people to not only speak about racism, educate other white people about racism, but also in many ways how I see this song is issuing a call to organize against racism. Because ultimately, if we look at these systems, it's white people that are running every single system in this country, from education to healthcare to criminal justice. And we as black people and other people of color are suffering across the board in every system. So it's going to be white people that are going to have to use their positions of power to help dismantle racism. So I think it's quite appropriate for white people across the board, whether you're a teacher, police officer, hip hop artist, to use what you have, your voice, to call other white people to the movement. And see, we're in an era of Black Lives Matter, right?
Yeah.
And that's true. But see, one of the things I think we forget is that black liberation is not just about black liberation. If black people are liberated, this whole society will be liberated. And one of the things that we've had conversations about is that it's important for white people to see how their liberation is tied into dismantling racism. And not just in terms of on a humanity level. I mean, that's definitely a part of it, because we use this terminology, those who have come to be called white. So there was a historical process of giving up who they were, whether that be Irish, Italian, German, to buy into this whiteness to get the privileges, right? But also, if we look at white poor people are poor because of racism, because politicians will use dog whistle politics to have poor white people vote against their own economic interests. We look at the suicide rates in white communities, the dysfunctions across the board, the addiction issues. A lot of that's attributed to racism and living in a society that tells you that you're superior, but in many ways you don't feel it. You feel the contradictions in the lies. So I think this song is a compelling song and calls us to truth, calls all of us to truth.
All of us. Couple lyrics in there. Silence, silence is a luxury. Hip hop is not a luxury, right? Hollis, I want to ask you this. There are a lot of folks who are privileged that don't even know it. And that the attitude is, well, so what, man? I'm here on this planet. I got to live my life. They got to live theirs. It's not my problem. I was born into this. I didn't create this. That's not even true. That's just people of color bitching and crying and whining because they don't like their lives or where they are in their lives. Look at Michael Jordan. Look at, Kobe Bryant. Look at all these. There's a lot of black folks who live in luxury. They were able to navigate through this society and find their happiness. It's a lot of white folks that feel like that. They have no idea. What would you say to them?
Well, first of all, I feel like those kind of narratives get held up all the time, right? Like, oh, why can't you do this? X does this. And I think, especially, I see that a lot. I'm a second generation Chinese American, and I think I see that a lot, like, especially in the Asian American community or just in immigrant communities. Like, oh, like this person X happened, so why is that not possible? And we uphold these narratives that simply just within our system aren't possible to create because of the way that oppression is built in and white supremacy is built into our systems. But we use those moments or those instances or those individual narratives to kind of instruct something that's actually not achievable. If everybody could do that, then we would have equality and there wouldn't be oppression anymore. So I think when I hear things like that, like, oh, I don't have privilege, or even if I do have privilege, so what, I earned it or what have you, or what I hear is just a lot of defensiveness. And I think the defensiveness comes from fear. Because I think when people hear, for example, like we live in a racist society, or all white people carry racism with them because they're conditioned to be that way, I think a lot of people take it really personally.
Yeah.
And I think that people feel like when you say, I live in a racist society that I benefit from, what they hear is I'm a bad person. And because they look at the insurmountable odds of being able to undo that, people kind of don't really want to try at all. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's, because it's scary, right? I mean, when we look at it too, like, if we're all saying like, okay, we're all down for the movement, we're all down to undo white supremacy, we're comfortable with even using the terminology white supremacy, which can be really scary for people because there's such like this historical construction of it being the most extreme thing. So when we're bringing it to the forefront and we talk about it in our communities and talk about actually white supremacy is like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere we turn. It's embedded. That can be really overwhelming and really disheartening. And so it makes sense that an initial reaction would be that of denial and that of like, it's not my problem. I'm not involved in it. This is not something that I'm going to be able to do or fix or send $5 through a text message and feel better about myself. Like we're living in the age of instant gratification. So all we want to do is be absolved of like what we're involved in. And I think that's a lot of it is just realizing, not to say that people can't do things in a personal way and enact, and kind of perpetuate racism in that way. But really getting over the fear of examining how deep we're in this and how much work it's going to take to get out of it, but that the work is beautiful work.
Yeah.
The work is work that reveals our humanity and works towards our collective liberation.
Because if you don't do it, eventually there's going to be a revolt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's going to be more than just people marching. And I'm kind of, my background is from that state of mind, of how I grew up in Oakland and what I was taught. And I was telling Ben that some lyrics that really touched me. I really thought, wow, this dude is on one. America feels safe with my music and its systems, and it suited me perfect. The road, I fulfilled it. And if I'm a hero, you know who gets cast as the villain. White supremacy isn't just a white dude in Idaho. White supremacy protects the privilege I hold. White supremacy is the soil, the foundation, the cement, and the flag that flies outside of my home. That's what I was taught. That this country was built on white supremacist values. White supremacy is our country's lineage, designed for us to be indifferent. My success is the product of the same system that let off Darren Wilson guilty. We want to dress like, walk like, talk like, dance like. Shit. You all right, Rich Nice? Yet we just stand by. We want to do everything black people do, but we don't want to struggle with them. We don't want to fight for them, and we definitely don't want to live their lives. How often have you heard a homeless white man wouldn't trade his life, for the richest black man to live in this country? And I'm looking at these lyrics. We take all we want from black culture, but will we show up for black lives? We want to dress like, walk like, talk like, dance like, yet we just stand by. We take all we want from black culture, but will we show up for black lives? Yo, man, that shit is dope.
Word.
And you're going to get a lot of backlash, not just from black folks, but you're going to have a lot of pro-white, movements and organizations. There's going to be some states you're going to go into, and you're going to, what you just did, man, you entered the movement. You're going to get backlash from blacks, and that comes with the territory, but this is what you put in the universe, right? Have you got that kind of reaction from white folks?
It's too kind of early to tell.
Oh, you will.
Yeah. No, I mean,
it's coming.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think that this song, like any piece of art, should be critiqued.
Mm-hmm.
Me talking about cultural appropriation or co-opting while doing those things in the record is an inherent contradiction within the song.
Yeah.
There was no way to make the song without that. We kept hitting these different barriers of like, okay, but if we're talking about this, then we're doing it at the same time. If we're talking about white privilege, we still will benefit from this song. Even through the critiques from all different types of people, we will still benefit. And I think that my intention should be analyzed, should be scrutinized. There should be a conversation. That's what this comes down to. But at the end of the day, I hope that it can get past, did he diss Iggy? Did he diss Miley?
Mm-hmm.
His white guilt, and get back into a place of what is this song's true intention, which is to start a dialogue, or is to step into the space of this conversation that has been happening, that has a movement, and one that I have been silent around. And hopefully I can just be one of the many voices to support the people that are at the forefront of this movement that have been putting in the work.
Absolutely.
One more thing about that, though, is like what excited me about being involved is their unique platform to speak to a demographic that would not really be engaged in these issues otherwise. Mm-hmm. So it's not, for black people who are upset about it, it's understandable, but at the same time, it's okay to it's not necessarily to educate black people. Like that's not what needs to happen. What needs to happen is for white people to talk to other white people more about these issues. And hopefully the song can also be a catalyst for that.
You want to add to that?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff I've been reading online has been about appropriation. I think there's a necessary conversation that needs to happen around cultural appropriation. As I walked through the hallways, I saw artists here who appropriated black blues music, right?
Yeah.
And every genre in this country has been appropriated. And you cannot live within a racist society and not have cultural appropriation. Not to say we shouldn't have the conversation, but I think we should take whatever anger we feel there and turn them against the systems that create the environment for that, right? And it's easy to sit in judgment and be critical, but the question is for all of us, and whatever our positions are in life, what are we doing to dismantle racism? Because many of us are in jobs that are upholding the system, the status quo as it exists. Then we can come home and get on Twitter and send all this fly stuff out about how we're mad about this song or mad about this. But we got to look at ourselves and check how we are rolling, because many of us in our day-to-day jobs, even when we think we have some consciousness, are carrying out our jobs in such a way that it's perpetuating the systems as they exist today.
I agree with you on that one, and Jamila as well, because like I said earlier, Jasiri X, Kendrick, Talib, Dead Prez, Chuck D, KRS-One, you know, we could go deep, X-Clan, where, you know, there have been groups throughout the years in hip-hop that have had similar messages. But it's okay. You know, I have to get beyond all that, too, over the years. I understand this argument people are making, and I get that. And you're right, you're going to have to take that. But I'm waiting for us to, what I think Hollis was saying about change the system, because it's all systematic, right? It's all systemic. It's all a part of our DNA. And so once you get over that argument, like what he just said, like Dustin said, what are you going to do? And I think that's how I view the song, and that's my right. You know, that's my right. You know, and I don't give a who has anything to say to me about it or how my position. What are we going to do to change? That's why I'm on this show. That's why I went to MTV. It wasn't to be famous or become a celebrity and all that stuff. Me and King Tech was getting it way before I went to MTV.
Hey now.
We had property since the early 90s. I'm stunting on you, Ben.
Do it again.
You got that? Thank you, Rich
Says the
Knight.
90s.
No, but I said the 90s, kid. But what are we doing now? We need this kind of music. I could play here at Shade 45. We play all kind of music all day.
Yeah.
And with these repetitive messages, that ain't moving culture forward. That's not causing conversation. In fact, it's perpetuating those very things that I think white supremacy seized planet for us to, you know, swallow to keep ourselves oppressed in some ways at times. So you doing this, you guys shaking up the world and being out there now, you on the chopping board. Go feel that shit. That make you tough. And next time you go to a Black Lives Matter march, you'll be screaming that shit loud as fuck and not questioning, because brother, you felt a certain way about it. It didn't change the fact that Black Lives Matter.
Right.
You know, everybody should be able to sing Black Lives Matter, Chinese Lives Matter. If the Chinese folks are being oppressed or whoever's being oppressed, all lives do matter, in my opinion.
Right.
But initially, we were talking about Black Lives Matter. You should be able to scream that out.
And I think that one point with this record is that, you know, that we've all talked about is that this song is not going to be successful depending on the first, 48 hours of Twitter.
Yeah.
Or the comment section of a blog. This song is success lies in where we go from here.
Yeah.
And this is just the first step of many in terms of a lifelong commitment to equality. And how do we show up? Because if we just step into this conversation and we're like, look, we wrote a song, it's 9 minutes, we're good. That's actually not doing anything. It's about how do we use this platform to go beyond the song? How do we engage our audience beyond just we made a piece of music? How are we using our resources, our financial resources to support Black-led organizations? How are we cultivating curriculums and in real conversation within our communities around racism and white supremacy? How are we passing this this information that we're learning on to the next generation? And actually, Dustin, I've done a couple trainings with Dustin, and I would love to hear from him. He has he's a facilitator and a teacher at the People's Institute. And
where's that located?
So People's Institute is based in New Orleans, Louisiana, but we have offices in New York and Seattle, and we sponsor something that we call a 2.5 day Undoing Racism / community organizing training. It really came up. It was The organization was started by two black men, Dr. Jim Dunn and Ron Chisholm. And the organization really came up post-civil rights movement, understanding that while we had changed all the laws in this country, we hadn't changed the basic nature of the systems of this country. So we needed to develop anti-racist organizers, whether that's working in community, working in institutions, whatever realm we're in, who will continue to do the work to root out the racism that's embedded within all of our systems. And Ben and many people, Hollis and many other people, have been a part of the workshop, and I know Ryan, Jamila, and other folks are going to be coming soon.
What are you doing the workshop? I kind of I want to go. Yeah. Can we all
amazing.
Go? Can Sway in the Morning come?
For
the
real.
whole show?
Field trip.
You know what?
Yeah.
I can hook you up with the team that's here in New York. And also we're about to go down to D.C. I'm going down to D.C. to do a workshop starting this Wednesday.
Yeah.
But workshops are happening all over the country. But we at least do, 15 to 20 here in New York. And there's a lot of anti-racist organizing going on in the city. So you come as our guest.
Okay, cool. You guys got an album coming out too, right?
February 26th.
February 26th. So I'm just curious. I mean, the two songs I've heard so far, none of them are aiming for any type of commercial success, obviously. Downtown, you didn't aim for it. It just happened, right? Because that became a huge song. Right? And I was so happy because of, the Pioneers. I was just so happy for them.
I think that with streaming now, how they're equating it all, is it true that, Lee, that it went platinum? Yeah. We can say it? Platinum?
It went platinum.
So Kaz gets a plaque.
Kaz gets the Grandmaster Kaz. For those who don't know,
Come on, man.
Grandmaster
Kaz
Kaz, Rapper's Delight.
He wrote.
Yeah.
One of the first big crossover rap record ever was Rapper's Delight. And Grandmaster Kaz, member of the Cold Crush brothers. If you go get the movie Wild Style, you can learn a whole lot about who they are and their importance to this culture.
Right.
Got ripped off.
Yep.
And never got his just due.
Right.
And that's a whole nother conversation, but we never pay homage to our people scared of the past. They're scared of history. People don't want to acknowledge history. History makes you think. And we don't acknowledge those guys who laid those building bricks for us to be doing what we're doing today. So congratulations on the success of that. The album is going to have more songs like, what's the album?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, to no surprise, the album, similarly to everything else we've done, is a mess.
Okay.
I think the only thing cohesive about our music is the fact that it's really not cohesive. So, and that's interesting. And I think that was also kind of ingrained in what the album title was, is that you have a downtown, you have a white privilege too, you have Kevin, you have growing up. And I think for whatever reason, for both of us, since long before we had an audience, there's always been kind of, the standard to an album from us feeling complete is that you're kind of covering the human spectrum, that you're offering in that album the chance to laugh, the chance to cry, to think, to dance. I think for whatever, I think people make music for a bunch of different reasons, and we have never done it singularly, like we're going to make 10 dance songs and that's what we do. And that's always just been common to the types of albums that feel complete to us.
Yeah.
So this album is no different in that regard. It takes you all over the place. Yeah.
It's good you have that creative freedom because you could feel shackled in this business that you got to target certain, genres of platforms like radio and otherwise. But Heather, I have a whole f you money theory.
Yeah.
Like when you made enough money where you could just, man, f you. I'm going to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
That's the best.
And congratulations, you reached it. You got there.
Thank you. You know what also helps with that a lot is not being on a label.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because no one's like, yo, you got to make this song or you got to get this feature. It's like,
Right.
Yeah, we don't feel the pressure to have to make those types of records. Right. And I thought that this creative process was important, that we never sat out to be like, yo, like we're going to make this song about thrift shops and it's going to be, it's gonna go multi-platinum and it's gonna be on the, like, we didn't have in our mind any songs that would ever work at radio. So I think we went into the same process with this one, and maybe nothing ends up on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Money.
That's because we have you money.
There you go. There you go.
No, it's because it's truly because the art is what matters, and not sales and not the radio. We care about the art, and if that's at the compromise of not tapping back into a pop audience or not being in arenas or not being in theaters or whatever, we're gonna make the art that we want to make.
Good for you.
That's dope.
I want to thank you all for. Anybody want to add anything else in before we
Closing words.
Closing Hollis? I love when you speak. Go for it.
So kind.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think this has been a really great dialogue, and I think that, ultimately that's what art is for, right?
Yeah.
This is it was, to me, the value of this process is the fact that, as creative people, we came together and embarked upon a creative process where ultimately, we were working on a song, but that was just kind of the premise for the growth that we did as people. So it was really just kind of affirming of how important it is for everybody to kind of tap into their creative potential, because it's such a tool and a mechanism to grow. I also just want to shout out that Jamila Woods just came out with a new song this past week and fall called Black Girl Soldier that she can tell you all about.
That's heat.
Wait, we could play the song. Let's
Yeah.
Can we? Do you guys mind if we end with Jamila's song instead of yours?
That would be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And then also the three of you give out your social media. Let's start with Hollis and move down.
Hi, my name is Hollis. My handle is at Wong Weezy, and I'm in a band called The Flavor Blue.
See, that's that. Wong Weezy. See, that's a cultural appropriation, man. That's what I'm talking about, man.
Why you gotta be a Weezy?
Why I gotta be a Weezy, Hollis? Okay, go ahead. Dustin, go ahead, man.
So I don't do the social media too much, but you can hit me at dwashington@afsc.org.
Nice.
dwashington at afsc.org.
Why you don't do social media?
It's boring.
Boring. Be on the
My
streets.
man, D, we about to be homies. I already see that, man. Jamila, how can they reach you?
My Twitter is Dumilo, DUHMILO.
Okay, and tell us about your song.
My song, Black Girl Soldier, is a song that was inspired by my sisters, the Black women in my life, the Black women who I see in Chicago doing direct organizing work. It kind of samples a freedom chant I learned at a protest, and I hope it can just be kind of an elixir or just a kind of healing song for anyone, but especially Black women.
Okay, well, let's go into it, and I want to thank you guys for coming by and having this conversation with us. I wanted to make sure it was a dialogue and not an attack.
Yeah.
You will get that and handle it. You can handle it. And then at the end of that attack, make sure that, okay, now you got my perspective. Let me know yours and what you're doing to make. You can ask any journalist who asks you about any, you can ask them, what are you doing? Are you in the trenches? You march?
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch the march? What are you doing now? Because the problem ain't going nowhere. These are the same, like I said, we've been talking about this for centuries, right? So to me, that's what hip hop was meant for, so that the disenfranchised could create their own platform, have a voice that could be heard. And since you guys benefited from the culture, it's only right that you make an effort to give back. That's what I do. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you guys coming by and thank you. You brought great panelists. All right, reach out to
you guys.
Jasiri X and all those guys too, man. I'll send you some names, man. That'd be dope if you hook. You know Jasiri, right? Do you know Jasiri X?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay, he's from Chicago. All right. Okay. Macklemore, Ryan Lewis. Make sure you listen to the song if you again.
Yep.
And we about to go into Jamila's new song, and it's called once more, Jamila.
Black Girl Soldier.
Sway in the morning, Shade 45. The one and only Macklemore and Ryan Lewis, and they didn't come along. Give them a round of applause.
That's what's up.
Yeah, man. I think we could do that applause a little better. Let's give them a round of applause. All right.
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
I'm great.
Good.
First of all, you brought guests with you.
Yes.
Let's introduce the guests. Can you do the honors, Macklemore?
Absolutely. To my left, Jamila.
Jamila.
Hi.
Hey, go ahead. Put that mic up. There you go, Jamila.
Hi, everybody.
Okay. And Jamila is from?
Chicago, Illinois.
Okay, and you was featured on this song, White Privilege too, right?
Yes,
Oh.
I was the vocalist at the end.
Yeah, you have great vocals, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I always listen to see if people stay in key. You stayed in key. All right. And then next to Jamila, we have
Dustin.
Dustin
How you doing?
from Jersey.
From Seattle by way of Jersey.
From Seattle, Does that still count, Heather B?
Absolutely. Jersey always in the building. What part of Jersey?
South Jersey, Willingboro.
There you go.
Okay, all right. And then also, last but definitely not least, we have
Hollis.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, how you doing,
We got the
Hollis?
squad.
Great. Feeling good to be in New York.
Oh, well, good to have you here. Congratulations on everything, man.
Yeah.
Last time we saw each other, we were in Europe, and we were at the EMA of Emotions
Right.
that I've heard in an extremely long time.
Right.
The type of song that I enjoy, that forces people to think, whether they agree what was being said in the song or not. This is our world. This is our society.
Absolutely.
This is our country. This is our culture. Macklemore and Ryan Lewis are here. They brought guests. I'm just curious. This is probably the bravest song you've ever had to. Well, nah, I won't say that. You made a lot of courageous songs, but this is an extremely, brave song for you guys to make and write. Why? Why did you feel you don't have to do this? You got Grammys. You guys are rich now. You know, you sold a lot of records independently. You've been on world tours. Why do you even care to bring these topics about white supremacy, cultural appropriation, racism? Why was that important for you to talk about this?
For me, my art has always been a means of trying to dig into some sort of truth, whether that was truth in myself, truth in society, using the page as a means to peel away the layers and try to figure this experience out that we call life. And that's a daunting process. Ryan was listening. We both listened to Sirius XM.
Oh, okay. Well.
And we were listening. He was listening to Backspin, and was like, "Yo, you know what we need to do is flip some of these old cadences and old inflections that people were doing in the '80s."
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of all those dudes, and I wrote some raps, and we were kind of going for this old school hip hop / like old school rock merger feel. And I did it, and I was like, man, it doesn't feel authentic if we don't reach out to the people that originated this style.
Yeah.
If we just take it without actually like at least asking if they wanted to be a part of the record, because Melly Mel is one of the, that inflection is one of the most classic tones in hip hop history.
Yeah.
I mean, the message to me is the greatest hip hop record of all time.
Yeah. That's I could get. I
Well
said
stated.
that too. Never been a song more important than that, right?
Right.
How did you write the verses or did they?
Well, it was a group vocal.
Okay.
So it was a squad vocal. So I did write it, but those guys are all MCs.
Yeah.
Like they would have been real quick to pick up the pen. It wasn't like, yo, write our verses. The song was already almost done. So they came in and did the group vocal part of it. But yeah. It wasn't like I'm writing raps for Melly Mel or anything like that.
Okay, yeah. Brian, did they know you guys when you guys started working with them? Were they familiar with your background?
They were all differently familiar with our background, but I think that it was new for sure.
It was new. One of the reasons why you guys are here today is because of this song that you released to the universe, if you will, that has all the social media buzz. People in the streets are buzz. People in the industry, they're buzzing about it too. I got a chance to hear it maybe about 4 or 5 times, and I even went to Genius too and downloaded the lyrics. I want to play this song right now. It's called White Privilege 2, and I want to come back and just talk about how it all began, how it all came together. Okay, Sway in the Morning. Sway in the Morning, Shade 45. That was White Privilege 2, recently released to the world. In my opinion, Heather, one of the most powerful songs, impactful songs, honest songs, uncomfortable songs, songs that evoke all sorts of
Yes.
That was a couple months ago, and you guys were performing downtown on stage, and I was at the rehearsal, and I was trying to get your attention, and you guys were really focused, and we finally spoke, and I wanted to commend you because Heather, one of the things that they did that I wish a lot more artists do. I've seen Kid Rock do it before with Run DMC. I've seen Eminem do it before and bring people out on a big stage. And what they did is they helped breathe life, even more life, into some of our hip hop pioneers. When we talking about Kumo D, and we talking about Grandmaster Caz, and we talking about Kumo D, Caz, and Melly Mel. Oh my God,
Melly Mel.
Ooh, I can't forget Melly, one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest.
Right.
And they did the Downtown record, and I remember watching it too, watching the piece of the video, and watching rehearsals at the EMAs, and I remember thinking, damn it, it's so cool. Even at the VMAs, it's so cool to see Kumo D, Melly Mel, and Grandmaster Caz from the Cold Crush Brothers, on stage on this big platform. And I was proud of you guys for doing that because nobody takes care of our pioneers. Why did you choose to do that?
It was actually